I hadn't been home in nearly 2 years, but the guilt was louder than my pride. It was my father's 60th birthday, and like always, I convinced myself this time would be different. That maybe, just maybe, he'd see me. Not for my bank account or my degree or the way I could fix things, but for the son who still remembered what it felt like to press his face against the window waiting for Dad to come home from work. I flew from Chicago to Pittsburgh, then rented a car to drive the last hour into the gray sprawl of my childhood town. I could have stayed in a hotel, but Mom insisted I take the guest room. I should have known better. The sheets still smelled like dust and old perfume. The air was stale with unspoken resentment. They didn't hug me when I arrived. Just nodded like I was the UPS guy dropping off a package. But I still clung to the idea of family like it owed me something. I brought gifts. Stupidly expensive ones. A $5,000 Swiss watch for Dad, laser engraved with the date and the words, "To the man who taught me how to build." I paid for the dinner, too. The whole thing. A private room at Baccaros, the only fine dining spot in town. Custom menu, open bar, the works. Final bill? Just under $12,000. We laughed that night. Or I thought we did. Dad gave me a weird half-hug after opening the watch, said, "Finally got you spending money like a real man." I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Mom kept making jabs like, "Well, you finally made up for skipping Mother's Day," and my sister Rebecca rolled her eyes when I toasted to new beginnings. But I told myself it was all just awkward love. That's how they show it. Until the check came. And they were all gone. Vanished. I sat at the head of a long, empty table as the server cleared the plates. "They said you'd be handling the bill," she said gently, almost apologetic. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I checked the restaurant entrance and found them outside, through the window, laughing near the valet stand, posing for a group selfie. All of them. Even my cousin Danny, who hadn't spoken to me since high school. No one looked back. I paid the bill in full. The hostess offered me a free dessert for the inconvenience. I said no. When I got back to the car, I checked the group chat. Rebecca had texted, "Thanks for dinner. Investor clinking glasses LOL." That's when I knew. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a slip-up. This was a long-running game. And I was the wallet they passed around. On the drive back to my hotel, I wasn't going back to that house. I kept hearing my dad's voice from earlier. Real man. Real men didn't get conned by their own family. Real men fought back. I couldn't sleep that night. The hotel room was too quiet, too clean, too unfamiliar to drown out the nausea in my chest. I kept hearing that click, the sound of the restaurant door closing behind them, like a trigger I never saw coming. By morning, the shock had hardened into something colder. I went back to Baccaros. The manager, a tall guy with a polite corporate smile, greeted me like I was a stranger. I asked if there had been any misunderstanding. If maybe there was a mistake and my family meant to split the bill. He paused, looked down at the reservation screen. Then he said, "Sir, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but..." He led me to the back office, where security footage played silently. There it was. 10 minutes before the check came, Rebecca got up, whispered something to Mom, then motioned to Dad. One by one, they excused themselves. In the hallway near the restroom, they all regrouped, laughing. My dad held up the leather bill folder like a trophy. Then they walked out together. The manager shook his head. "They told us you insisted on paying and wanted it to be a surprise." "Sorry, man." I thanked him. Walked out into the sunlit parking lot and just stood there. I wasn't angry yet. I was humiliated. I sat in my car for an hour, staring at my hands. Then I opened the Notes app and started writing down every time I'd sent money home. There were more than I remembered. $3,000 for Mom's kitchen remodel. $7,800 for Rebecca's down payment. $10,000 when Dad said the business was tight during COVID. Another $15,000 when the roof caved in. Plane tickets. Surprise vacations. Car repairs. I pulled up my bank history. Exported the statements. When I got back to Chicago, I kept digging. Old emails. Venmo receipts. Forgotten PayPal transfers labeled, just until Friday. I started a spreadsheet and titled it The Investment. Sarcastic at first, but then something else. A ledger of my denial. Over 10 years, I'd given them $453,297. 32. Not loans. Not gifts. Not charity. A purchase. Of love I never received. I looked at the final line and said aloud, I paid $500,000 to be ignored. That's when it snapped. I stopped answering texts. Stopped returning calls. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't send a final check. I vanished from their lives like they did from mine, without ceremony. Then I opened Google and typed in top family law attorneys in Illinois. It was time to turn this into something real, something they couldn't laugh off. The lawyer I hired wasn't cheap, but I didn't care. Her name was Dana Caldwell, a stone-faced strategist with zero tolerance for self-pity and a resume that made people uncomfortable. First meeting, she slid a legal pad across the table and said, "Tell me everything. No embellishments." So I did. She asked for documentation. I gave her the spreadsheet. Halfway through reviewing it, she said, "You were groomed." I flinched. "That's a little dramatic." She looked up. "No, Ethan. It's not. They conditioned you. You're the family ATM with guilt for a pin. It wasn't just the money. It was how they asked. Always laced with affection when they needed something. Withheld when they didn't. I've been buying proximity to a family I was never really part of. A desperate investor throwing cash at a failing stock." Dana called it what it was: long-term financial exploitation under false pretenses. Not criminal in every instance, but part of a clear pattern of manipulation. She told me we had options: civil litigation, restraining orders, asset tracing. "Will this destroy them?" I asked. She gave me a long look. "Do you want it to?" I didn't answer. Instead, I asked her to send out letters. Cease and desist. Official notice that I was formally severing all financial ties. That any attempts to contact me for money, directly or through third parties, would be interpreted as harassment. She drafted the emails. I hit send. The silence was immediate. No angry texts. No late-night voicemails. Just nothing. Until 2 weeks later, when Rebecca posted a photo on Facebook. It was of Dad standing outside his office building, a hand-painted sign in the background that read, "Closed for renovations." The caption: "When some people can't be used anymore, they try to make themselves victims." Classic narcissist behavior. I knew it was about me. The comments flooded in. "You guys don't deserve that. Family should always come first. What kind of son turns on his own parents?" They were building a narrative, painting me as unstable, unfilial, cruel. I stayed silent, but I doubled down on the spreadsheet, now reworked as a formal forensic timeline. Dana helped me catalog each transaction, tie it to specific messages and requests, and annotate patterns of coercion and emotional manipulation. We weren't just organizing data. We were building a case. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. It was my Uncle James, Dad's younger brother. The one black sheep who left town years ago after a bitter falling out with the family. "Ethan," his voice rasped. "I heard what happened. Call me back. There's stuff you don't know." I stared at the phone, heart racing. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. James met me at a greasy spoon off I-80. He looked older than I remembered, wiry, wind-worn, tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. He ordered black coffee and lit a cigarette the second the waitress turned her back. "Your dad's a bastard," he said. No greeting. I waited. "He's been running that manipulation racket since before you were born. Did the same thing to me, just smaller scale. Guilt, control, fake emergencies." I left and never looked back. "But you," he jabbed the air. "You were the golden goose." I told him everything. Showed him the spreadsheet, the Facebook posts, the footage from the restaurant. James shook his head, almost impressed. They escalated. Then he pulled a folder from his coat and slid it across the table. "Here's your smoking gun." Inside were copies of emails, bank slips, a PDF of a handwritten note from my mom asking James for a loan to keep Ethan's payments off the books so it doesn't mess with our taxes. I flipped through pages of betrayal. At one point, I just stared at a transfer slip, $25,000 wired from my account to Taylor Innovations Holding LLC, signed by my father, who'd somehow added himself as a secondary authorized user years ago. It wasn't just manipulation. It was fraud. James had been quietly collecting this stuff for years. "I never thought anyone would stand up to them," he said. "Then I saw what you did. Figured you deserved some ammo." I handed the folder to Dana that afternoon. She reviewed everything, then smiled for the first time. "We've got them." The next few weeks were chaos. Dana filed a formal complaint of fiduciary fraud. We began the process of revoking my father's unauthorized access. She filed paperwork to freeze and audit any accounts linked to my name. We subpoenaed old tax returns and wire records. That's when the retaliation really began. Rebecca posted again. This time, a long essay about how I was mentally unstable and trying to destroy our father's legacy out of jealousy. She tagged old friends, accused me of elder abuse, claimed I was harassing them. Then, out of nowhere, An anonymous Reddit post popped up under a throwaway account, sharing cherry-picked screenshots of text where I appeared controlling, manipulative. But Dana had prepped me for this. We posted a public statement on my company's blog, calm, factual, unapologetic. We disclosed the dispute and affirmed our support for mental health and financial boundaries. The transparency worked. Clients stayed. A few even reached out privately to say they were proud of me. That was the moment I realized I didn't have to protect my family's image anymore. They weren't my image to protect. They were strangers who shared my DNA. The subpoena landed like a grenade. 3 days later, Taylor Innovations halted operations. The company's lawyer sent a cease and desist, calling my actions malicious interference. Dana responded with a 12-page letter detailing every shady transfer, tax dodge, and misuse of my funds. She included timestamps, dates, screenshots. After that, it was quiet. Too quiet. Then Rebecca showed up. She banged on my apartment door like she owned the place. I didn't answer at first, just watched her through the peephole, wild-eyed, tear-streaked, holding her phone like a loaded weapon. "Ethan, I swear to God, if you don't open this door." I cracked it. Just enough. "What?" She blinked like she hadn't expected to get this far. "You're ruining our lives." "No," I said. "I'm just refusing to let you keep ruining mine." "You think this is justice?" she hissed. "Dad's losing the business. Mom's on antidepressants. We might lose the house." "For what?" "Because we made you pick up a few checks. You stole from me." She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might snap. "You're unbelievable. You're just bitter because they didn't baby you like your little startup buddies do." Then she tried to cry. I mean, really tried, screwing up her face like someone imitating sorrow. I didn't bite. "I know about the account Dad opened in my name," I said. "I know about the extra credit cards. The ghost expenses." She went pale. "You'll hear from our lawyer," she snapped, turning on her heel. "And when this blows up in your face, don't come crawling back." The door clicked behind her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt grounded. That same week, the audit confirmed our findings. My father had siphoned over $130,000 through fake business expenses tied to my identity. Dana filed to open a civil suit for restitution and damages. They couldn't touch me anymore. But they still tried. Fake emails pretending to be reconciliation attempts. A new smear campaign on a Facebook group run by one of Mom's friends. Even a letter from my dad, typed, not handwritten, full of passive-aggressive quotes from the Bible and phrases like, "A good son knows his place." I didn't respond. I focused on work. On rebuilding. Clients referred new ones. My team rallied. I implemented wellness policies and financial literacy resources for junior engineers. If I was going to be the guy who broke the cycle, I had to model what healthy boundaries actually looked like. That's when James called again. "They're gonna sell the house," he said. "Short sale. It's already on the market." I felt nothing. Not anger. Not victory. Just air. "They're telling people it's because of the economy," he added. "Let them," I said. Let them believe whatever they needed to. I wasn't part of the story they were selling anymore. The house sold for less than half its market value. I saw the listing online by accident, 2 blurry photos, mismatched furniture, and a single line of description, "Fixer-upper with potential." Just like us, I thought. James confirmed the sale a week later. All they got was debt, he said. And resentment. He didn't sound smug. Just tired. Taylor Innovations officially filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy the following month. My dad tried to spin it in the local press, blaming supply chain issues and labor shortages. But the real reason was buried in the court filings. Unauthorized loans, back taxes, and one very pissed-off son with a paper trail. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt done. I didn't go back for the auction. I didn't bid on the house or try to salvage old furniture. There was nothing in that place I wanted. No photos. No keepsakes. The memories were in my bones, and none of them were worth keeping. Mom tried writing me again, this time a handwritten letter. It started sweet, soft, almost apologetic. By the second paragraph, she'd pivoted. "You've humiliated your father." Then the guilt. "You know he's always struggled with vulnerability." Then the dagger. "We treated you like an adult. Maybe that was our mistake." I didn't finish reading. I burned the letter in my kitchen sink. And just like that, the last thread was gone. I'd always thought cutting ties would feel like amputation. Instead, it felt like pulling out a thorn that had been lodged in me so long I'd forgotten the limp. One night, I opened the spreadsheet again. The investment. It looked sterile now. Cold. Just cells and numbers. No anger. No grief. Just a history of a bad transaction. I hovered over the delete key. Then I pressed it. Gone. Not archived. Not backed up. Gone. And with it, the last excuse I had for holding on. That weekend, I went for a walk downtown. No headphones. No destination. Just the city breathing around me. Streetlights flickering. Children laughing. A guy strumming a guitar on the corner. And then, in a park near the river, I saw them. A father and son flying a kite. The boy squealed every time the wind caught it just right, and the man laughed, really laughed, and let the string out a little more. They didn't see me. Didn't need to. I stood there longer than I should have. Watching something I never had. Something I used to want so badly it hurt. Now, I just felt still. Not healed. Not broken. Just free. 6 months later, I met Sophia. She was 23, whip-smart, and burned out from working 12-hour shifts at a startup that treated her like a cock. We met at a tech mentorship event, and she reminded me too much of myself, hungry, bright, and already on the edge of being used. She told me she wanted to launch something of her own but didn't know where to start. No capital. No connections. No confidence. So I told her the truth. Not just about business, but about what happens when you confuse your worth with your usefulness. You don't owe anyone your burnout, I said. Not your boss. Not your family. Not even your dreams. Her eyes welled up when I said that. I didn't become her savior, just her mentor. I helped her set up a sustainable path, taught her what questions to ask, when to say no, how to build something without bleeding for it. She told me I was the first person who ever said, "You don't have to earn rest." That hit me harder than I expected. One afternoon, we were meeting at a cafe when she asked, "Do you ever miss them?" "Your family." I stirred my coffee. Thought for a while. "Sometimes," I said, "but I think I miss the idea more than the people." She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. I built a new kind of family now, not by blood, but by choice. People who showed up without invoices. People who gave back more than they took. The past still came knocking sometimes. A tagged photo. A forwarded email. A voicemail from some distant relative asking what really happened. I never replied. Because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. I wasn't the investment. I was the return. The final scene? That happened on a quiet Sunday. I walked through the same riverside park where I'd seen the father and son with the kite. This time, I brought a book, found a bench, and sat in the sun. There they were again. Or maybe different people. It didn't matter. A dad. A kid. The same laughter. The same wind. I watched them for a while. No envy. No grief. Just peace. I smiled, closed the book, and leaned back. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to earn the air I was breathing. I just let it in.